It was a sweltering afternoon at the forward operating base somewhere deep in the rugged mountains, where dust swirled endlessly under the glaring sun. The general-purpose tent stood crowded with Marines, their uniforms soaked with sweat, the tension of weeks of operations lingering in the air. Among them was an old man, whose presence seemed incongruous amidst the young, energetic troops. He was lean, weathered by decades of sun and conflict, yet his posture carried a certain quiet authority. Many had noticed him walking through the base, though few knew his story. His uniform, though meticulously kept, bore an unfamiliar insignia, one that most of the younger Marines could not place. A young Marine, barely out of boot camp and brimming with overconfidence, noticed the old man sitting quietly at the edge of the tent. With a smirk, he leaned toward a friend and whispered, loud enough for others to hear, "Hey, what's his rank? Looks like he's been retired for 50 years. The words, meant to provoke laughter, echoed in the tent. A few of the younger Marines chuckled nervously, unsure whether joking about someone else's military career was appropriate. The old man slowly lifted his head, his eyes sharp beneath the brim of his cap. The chatter in the tent seemed to fade slightly as he turned toward the Marine, his expression calm but piercing. "My rank," he said in a voice that was quiet yet carried the weight of command. "You want to know my rank?" There was a pause that stretched uncomfortably. The young Marine nodded, his smirk fading as he sensed something different in the air. The old man rose slowly, each movement deliberate. Every eye in the tent followed him. "I was a sergeant major," he said, his tone steady. "Not just any sergeant major. I served for over 30 years. I've been in more battles than most of you have seen in your lifetimes. And the men I led, many didn't come home." There was a subtle tremor in his voice, but it was not fear, it was memory, steeped in sacrifice. The tent grew silent. The young Marine's laughter had died somewhere between the words, replaced by a creeping sense of awe. The old man began to walk through the tent, not with arrogance, but with the quiet assurance of a lifetime in service. "When I was your age," he continued, "I learned quickly that rank is not just on your shoulder. It is earned in every decision you make, in every life you protect, in every sacrifice you endure without complaint." He paused near the young Marine, whose face had turned pale. "I've seen my brothers in arms fall beside me. I've carried them, I've buried them, and I've kept going, because that is what Marines do. That is what honor demands." As he spoke, the Marines began to recognize the depth of his experience. The insignia on his uniform, the marks of campaigns long past, told stories that no one in the tent had lived. One by one, the younger soldiers began to feel a profound respect for the old man, a realization that they were in the presence of someone who had dedicated his life to service far beyond the reach of any drill instructor or recruiter. Even the quietest corners of the tent were now attentive, listening to every word, hanging on the cadence of decades of wisdom. The young Marine, who had intended a joke, now found himself unable to speak. The words that had once carried bravado had been stripped of their meaning. "I apologize, sir," he finally managed, voice barely audible. The old man nodded slightly, acknowledging the sincerity in the Marine's tone. He continued walking slowly to the center of the tent. "It is easy to forget the weight of history when you are young," he said. "But each of you is standing on the shoulders of those who came before. You carry their legacy every day, whether you know it or not." He stopped and faced the entire tent, his gaze sweeping across the room. "And remember, respect is not something you demand. It is something you earn through action, integrity, and courage. Your rank may give you authority, but your character gives you honor." A long silence followed. No one moved. No one dared breathe loudly. The tent, which had moments ago been filled with casual chatter, now felt like a hallowed hall of learning. Every Marine present sensed they had witnessed more than just a reprimand. They had been given a lesson in humility, bravery, and legacy. Hours seemed to pass in quiet reflection. The young Marine who had made the joke now sat quietly, staring at the floor, overwhelmed by a mixture of embarrassment and newfound understanding. The old man took a seat again at the edge of the tent, as though his words had been enough to remind the soldiers of something they had almost forgotten, the true meaning of service. Slowly, conversations resumed, but they were subdued, respectful, and tinged with reverence. Stories began to circulate among the Marines over the following days. The old man's presence became a symbol of experience and endurance. The tale of the young Marine's failed joke and the subsequent silence of the GP tent spread quickly through the base, carried from soldier to soldier. The anecdote was told with a mixture of humor and awe, emphasizing how quickly arrogance could be humbled by the weight of real service. Through the weeks, the old man remained on the base, offering advice, recounting experiences, and quietly mentoring the younger soldiers. His teachings were not loud or theatrical. They were subtle, embedded in conversations, actions, and the simple demonstration of discipline and courage. Marines learned more in his presence than in months of training exercises. They began to understand that the lessons of the battlefield were not just about tactics and weapons, but about character, endurance, and moral courage. The young Marine who had once mocked him became one of his closest listeners, learning the nuances of leadership, the importance of empathy, and the gravity of responsibility. The respect he had once lacked turned into a commitment to embody the values the old man represented. And though he could never undo the initial foolishness of his joke, he carried forward the lesson it had inadvertently unlocked: that true authority is earned, not assumed, and that the past carries wisdom too heavy to ignore. As the base settled into routine operations, the story of the GP tent incident became a quiet legend among the soldiers. Every new recruit heard of the old man, the silence he commanded, and the respect he inspired. The anecdote became a reminder that courage and honor are timeless, transcending age, rank, and even time itself. The tent where laughter had once echoed in ignorance now stood as a monument to discipline, reverence, and the enduring legacy of those who serve. By the time the old man left the base, his presence had transformed the morale of the unit. Marines moved with a renewed sense of purpose, not because of fear, but because they had witnessed the embodiment of service, the human measure of sacrifice. And though he departed quietly, leaving behind only stories and memories, the lesson lingered. The echo of his words would resonate in the GP tent for years to come, shaping the character of those who had been present, a testament to the profound impact of a life dedicated to duty.